Hi, I'm Ruby from the Useful Journal. Today I thought I would take you through how to create a simple weekly layout with a puzzle theme. And what I've decided to do is make 6 puzzle pieces per page on this A5 Midori journal. And to get an even layout, I've got a 1 centimetre border on each side of the A5 page, and then each square piece is 6 centimetres wide across and down. So that left me with a 0.5 centimetre row, which I left a space at the top. I figured this was a good place to leave the space because you can see that the first puzzle piece on the left hand side is slightly ajar and sticking up at the top, so you don't notice that there's extra space at the top of the page. Now, puzzle pieces are pretty simple, and as you can see so far in this journal, I've been doing, if you've been following this series, you'll know that I've been doing themes that are around squares because they're nice and simple to try when you're fairly new to all this. So puzzle pieces, we're using squares, and all you need to do is add a little nodule on each side that connects it to the next piece. Now if you can make it simple by just having all your pieces lying flat and connected. I've made it a bit more complicated by having a few pieces that aren't clicked in to the matching piece yet. And the way I did this was I drew a 6 centimetre line at whatever angle I liked, and then I found this business card, and that meant that I could grab easily a square, make sure that my edge was square. I was hunting around for something to use, and that's just what came to hand. And then from there, because you then know you've got a square corner, you measure across 6 centimetres a couple of times from your first line. That gives you your third side, and once you've drawn that line, you will then see that the final line is 6 centimetres as well. So you've managed to get a proper square. I tried to draw it roughly at first, and it's much harder to get it properly square, and there's probably more technical ways to do it, but the business card was an easy solution. The other thing you need to decide when you're doing these pieces that are kind of offset is decide which piece is going to be on top. I've assumed that the piece that isn't clicked in yet is on top, and so you need to erase any part of the piece below that would be covered or obscured by the piece that hasn't clicked in yet, just so that it looks right. And you'll see here I'm adding the nodules to match the one it's going into, but it's not right in the same position, so I've got to kind of guess at it, and it doesn't need to be perfect, but you can get a similar position if you measure up from the edge of the square to where it starts, and it's say 2 centimetres, and then you match that on your other piece, and that way at least your nodule is starting at the same spot. And so you'll see I'm doing it here. I'm measuring from the corner, making sure it's a matching distance from the corner, and then drawing my nodule to match. This one was a bit tricky because the nodules overlapped kind of awkwardly, but you've just got to erase and make sure that you have the right one showing as on top, and don't forget any lines that should show underneath. Next, I wanted to have my lines showing but not too dark with the lead pencil, so I erased them and used a friction yellow pen. Any sort of light coloured pen would do, to mark my puzzle pieces so that I could then colour over them. I just didn't want to, sometimes when you have lead pencil it doesn't erase very well, and you can still see it through your pencils, and I am going to be using Prismacolor coloured pencils in fairly light colours. So obviously it can't erase because it would erase the coloured pencil, so I chose to just do the outline of my pieces in a light coloured pen. Once that's done, I then grabbed my coloured pencils, and I've got two shades here of each colour, a darker and a lighter version, but I ended up just using the darker version of each and coloured in the edges of my pieces. First of all, though, I just outlined the pieces in the coloured pencil and went through all of them. I made sure that I never had the same colour piece touching another piece of the same colour. So this is the yellow, and then I do a different colour next to it. I chose the pink. Make sure that you outline both sides of that center line, because you've got the yellow piece on the left and the pink piece on the right, so you need to have a line for each colour, outlining it down that side. Then once I had the outline of each piece, I went back with the same colours, same coloured pencils, and just thicken the line, doing a heavier colour near the edge and then really reducing the weight I'm putting on the pencil as I get closer to the blank centre of each puzzle piece, to kind of just blend in and just gives it a nice shading in. They're looking a bit rustic. I'm not making it perfect. It's just a rough colour around the edge. Now you can see here, this was the bit where the nodule underneath was partially showing. So I've been careful to show that some of it is showing underneath through that gap, but not all of it. So just make sure you keep track of where pieces should be and how they should look. So once you've got that finished off, you have a lovely collection of 12 puzzle pieces on your weekly spread. At the beginning of preparing this spread, I originally thought I would do the lettering for June and the lettering for the calendar just myself, but I ended up deciding that I'd rather use stamps to do the calendar and all the days and numbers, because it was just a lot easier, and still did lettering for the actual June and some of the other titles. I erased this original bit that I did here and came back and did it again later. I thought I'd show you some simple stamps. There's quite a few options for these sorts of stamps available online. They're not particularly good quality. You'll see that the stamp isn't particularly sharp when it presses down on the page, and it gets a bit blurred, thick and blurred lines, but they save heaps of time and they're really convenient. So what I decided to do was show you some simple stamping using Versamagic stamp ink, which is a chalk based ink, so it's less likely to go through the page, which some other inks sometimes do. And acrylic stamps are so easy. It's handy having acrylic stamp blocks, the clear ones, because then when you put your stamp on it, you turn it over and you can still see how it's being placed on the page. You'll see in a minute what I mean. Here I am just sticking the stamp onto my stamp block, the stickiness can be got back. If it starts losing its stick, it just needs a bit of a wash, and then you can stick it and dry it without getting any fluff on it, and then it'll be fine. So I'm sticking the correct month and the days of the week, but you'll notice that they have a 31 and June only has 30 days. So what I did was I got some washi tape and I stuck some washi tape over the part of the page where the 31 would go and protect the page with the washi tape. This means that when I stamp, it won't put any ink on that part of the page where the 31 is, so I won't get a 31. The other thing you can do is be super careful and not get any ink on the 31 when you're putting ink on your stamp, but that's a bit tricky. Another tip here, which you'll see if you watch my video on stamping techniques, which I'll link here, the stamping is much better if you touch the ink to the stamp rather than press your stamp into the ink. It means you don't get as much ink. Now, you'll see here I'm wiping off the 31 just to make sure, but I also have the washi tape on my page to make sure that it doesn't come out. And it's that simple. It's just a bit of a time saver using stamps like this. They might not be as neat as you can do it yourself, or they might be neater than you can do it yourself. Depends on how good you are with writing. So there you go. You've got the month there. And then I am also using stamps for my days of the week and the dates. So once again, just touching the ink to the stamp and then lightly pressing it down at the top of the puzzle piece. Now I've got 12 pieces, so you'll have to keep watching to see what I use all the boxes for. It's a nice way to split up an A5 page, and I have used this kind of layout quite a bit. But yeah, there we've got the days of the week up here, and then we move on to the numbers. And this happens all the time when you're working on your journal, that you're just bumbling along, having a great time, and you then realize something's not quite right. Can anyone see what mistake I've made here? We've got Monday the 17th, Tuesday 18, Wednesday 19, Thursday doesn't have a date, and then we go straight to Friday 20. And I pick up the 23 and I go, hang on a minute, I've already got a date for Sunday, what's going on? And then slowly realize that I have to use whiteout tape, and it worked really well and whited out the parts of the numbers that I needed to fix, just the second digit, and then replace them all. So, and you know what? You can barely tell that I made a mistake. You have to look really closely to see the whiteout tape. So don't panic, these things can be fixed. A quick note too, you'll see that I dropped the stamps straight into the water bowl. That's because this is a water-based stamp ink and it washes off just by dropping it into the water, and then I just need to pull it out, damp it on a paper towel, and then put it back on the stamp backing and pack it away. So really simple to use. So once I had my days of the week, then I had a few other boxes to fill. So here I have a stamp with 5 boxes, and I thought that was perfect to do a habit tracker. So I need obviously 7 rows of these 5 boxes, and that'll give me 5 habits to track. And so I just create 7 rows, one for each day of the week, and then add the days of the week at the top of it, and then put the habits down the side. So very simple, nice little habit tracker for something that just needs 1 tick per day, and it's a good way to fill up a box. The other good thing about having habits in your weekly spread is that you don't forget to fill them in. Some people find it quite hard when you have your habits on a different spread because you're not looking at it as much as you are at your weekly, and so they forget to fill them in. So some people really like having them on their weekly spread. Now back to writing my titles. for June, I've done a really simple lettering style, and this is one that's really worth learning how to do because you use it quite a bit. And it's simply drawing a letter like J or U and then making part of the upright stems thicker. And I've just done that by a second line. Now it's your choice whether you leave it as an outline like I've done or whether you colour it in. I decided to leave it as an outline just because I didn't want it to be too heavy compared to what else I had on the page, so I've just left it as an outline. Could very easily have been coloured in. The pen I'm using is a Fudenosuke brown pen, so they do have a range of brush pens that have I think it's 10 colours, and they're really fun to use. The good thing too is that they don't tend to go through thinner paper. So this Midori journal does have thinner 80 GSM paper, and so ghosting bleed through is a bit of a problem, and the Fudenosuke are quite good on this paper. I then do headings for the other sections of my boxes. So there's the habits, I then choose 5 habits to write down, and I've gone with walking the dog, going to the gym each day, and it may not be every day, that's fine, it doesn't have to be every day. I've got drinking 6 water per day as a habit, and then I have reading 10 pages and also no coffee. So as I said, doesn't have to be every day, but you can just choose, okay, maybe I want to do these 4 days, and you just have to tick 4 days off. And there's so many different habits you could have, things like skincare routines or calling someone, all those sorts of things. There's so many things. So just let loose. Here I'm erasing the pencil from behind the Fudenosuke pen. That's the other good thing about those pens, is they dry quite quickly, but don't forget, if you've seen these videos before, you'll know that the Midori paper dries very quickly too. Then I decided to use one of the boxes to add a quote. Which I ended up going back over to thicken up some of the strokes. And the quote is, "It always seems impossible until it's done," and that was Nelson Mandela. So I thought that was a good quote for a weekly, and it also fits with the puzzle theme, which is something I like to do. I like to make my quotes related to my theme. The final 2 boxes are notes for next week. So if you haven't prepared your spread for the following week until part of the way through this week, then this is a great box for just noting down things that need to be done, things that are coming up, anything really, things that you just need to remember for next week. And then up the top I have a mood tracker. This is a very, very simple version. I've done the days of the week across the box, and then I've just got 1 to 5 down the box, and then each day you would just choose whether your mood was a 1 or a 5, and for me 1 is a low mood and 5 is a really, really good mood. And so yeah, this is a very, very simple mood tracker, but you can also select more than 1 mood per day, which is often something people ask about because they don't want to be restricted to 1 mood per day because something major could happen and completely change your mood. So yeah, very simple little thing, and you could draw the dots together and make it a bit of a graph. And that's pretty much the spread. So We used a Funasuki pen. We used Prismacolor coloured pencils. We used a stamp set with a Versamagic ink, chalk-based ink. We used an eraser and a sharpener. We used an acrylic block for the stamps and a lead pencil. And there's the ink. And what else? Oh, yes, we used correction tape. Oh, and the Pilot Friction pen. I hope you found this video useful and it's given you an idea for a weekly spread. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and I will keep on showing you more simple spreads for your journal. See ya.